evening and a warm welcome. Tonight at Hyde Park, we thought of talking about a matter that has come up mainly in social media and broadcast and newspapers in mainstream media about what's happening in the presidential election. Of course, I've invited to our studio civil society activist and somebody who has been in the forefront of reconciliation efforts post-Easter attacks. May I warmly welcome President's Counsel Alice Sabry to our studios.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting.
A former diplomat, also former Deputy President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka during the period from 2016 to 2018. You are now the legal counsel to the presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Gotabaya. You're not somebody who has been seen in media as a politician or a political activist, although you have been in the forefront of civil society activism. But why Gotabaya Rajapaksa? Why are you getting involved in politics?
Yeah, in fact, Gotabaya Rajapaksa is our best chance to take this country to the next level. I have worked with him for the last 15 years so I have known him as his lawyer, and during this particular period of time I have developed a relationship with him, someone I have seen him, his ability, his vision, his commitment for the duty, and his personal qualities as an honest, hardworking, morally upright individual. So this is our best chance. I thought for us also to do everything. After you achieve something, personal milestones in your life, you need to either contribute towards probably build up an empire on your own, or to help your country come out of the rut what we are in. So I think Mr. Rajapaksa is the best chance. He is a good leader. He could do great things for this country. That's what I thought. It's time that we stand with him to see that this country is turned around.
This also sounds like something, is a speech that would be given at a presidential campaign rally. You're not somebody we have seen, campaigning for any political candidate or any other cause that has any political value. Why are you so convinced with this manifesto? What is it? Because there's so much of opposition to the presidential candidates' relationships with the Muslim and Tamil community as well. Are you convinced? You represent the Muslim community. Are you convinced that he will, if elected as president, he will actually look at the requirements and the rights of the minorities?
Of course, I am very convinced, more than convinced. That is because you are correct. So he has been portrayed in a manner like he is anti-minority and pro-Buddhist hardliner, which is not the case. He had never been so. It's just that when he was the defense secretary of the country, he has to fight a ruthless terrorist organization. So he has to take the stern decisions and tough decisions. Other than that, if you look at the outcome of his actions when he actually gave strategic leadership to defeat the LTTE, I mean, end of the day, everyone in the country benefited. When security is ensured, everybody is safe. If everyone is safe, Muslims, Tamils, and everyone else is also safe. If you look at during the war, all Sri Lankans suffered, but the segment of the society who suffered the most were Tamils, because it is in their homeland the theatre of war. Bombs were blasted. They were the people who were taken into custody. It is their kids that LTT was taken away. So as a result of which, the counter-insurgency attacks were against them, or operations were against them. Now that we don't have the war, they are relatively safe, and Jaffna is today, anybody can move, very safe. Tamils are safe in Colombo. So that's the kind of leader we want. And if you carefully look at Colombo, he identified Colombo has three major problems, particularly 46% of Colombo is shanties, shanties, and then nobody, UMP, though they governed Colombo for the last 50-60 years, have done nothing. He identified scientifically this 46% of the Sri Lankan population which lives in the shanties, and he came out with an ambitious program to build 50,000 flats for those people who are shanty dwellers. And that is because he had that vision. But he was saying those days, as long as the shanties remain there, these poor kids who are there in the shanties will not have proper housing, proper sanitation facilities, proper education, and as a result of which, they were very, very prone to underworld activities and all sorts of nefarious activities.
But how about the rights of these shanty dwellers? Because there was a lot of opposition that was raised from the current government when they came into power. They did say that they were not provided with proper housing, that they were disregarded, neglected and ignored after their lands were acquired rather. So there is also allegation that Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa hasn't paid due attention to them.
Yeah, that's exactly the distortion of the campaign. That's what I tried to explain. When he did, actually, this is exactly the kind of the campaign which UMP on those days carried out, and they continue to do that. But what he did, he took them away, gave them alternative housing temporarily until these places are put up. And then, or if they had an option, if they don't like the housing which were provided, they would get a rental in between. So now these houses have come up. You have seen that, Mayura Place to Sahasrapura to Slave Island, all these high-rise buildings. Who are getting it? All the people who are evicted, not a single person from outside. Out of that, probably about 65 to 70% are minorities. So that's what I'm saying. For him, it doesn't matter whether you are a Muslim, Tamil or Sinhalese. For him, what matters is he's a Sri Lankan. So that's the kind of leader we want. That's the kind of leader who will deliver. And I'm sure if you look at my passion, is law. That's my area, that's my expertise. His area is security. So during the period where he was the defense secretary, he looked after Colombo, defeated the LTTE and gave leadership to defeat the LTTE and got rid of underworld, got rid of all sorts of drug menace. Now that's the kind of leader we want. Once you ensure that, everyone will be safe. I think minorities would be safer under a strong leader who will not compromise on the national security. You have seen that post 21-4, Muslims are the most vulnerable segment. Why was it? That is because 21-4 happened. Had they prevented 21-4, with all those intelligence reports that were there, Muslims wouldn't have gone through this mess during the last 6 months or so. So there is no better person at this point in time who will give priority to national security. When
you say Muslims are the most vulnerable community in Sri Lanka, what does it really mean? Is it because of the kind of the riots and the violence that erupted after the Easter attacks, or is it because of certain preceding events?
No, I mean, over a period of time, there was slowly an anti-Muslim kind of a build-up was coming in. But
it is alleged that it is from the Rajapaksa camp that this anti-Muslim, the narrative was building up.
Yeah, that is exactly. UMP had been narrating, saying that Rajapaksa was instrumental in bringing up BBS. That's what they are saying. And they were instrumental in doing it. For what? So actually, somebody is calling tomorrow. I told this is what the UMP is saying all over, and that was broadcasted. And tomorrow, I think Bodhabala Sena is calling a press conference to say that they are disassociating with my allegation that they were involved in Alugama, though I never made that allegation. But I told GR or Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa had nothing to do with the BBS. So this is a separate kind of a phenomenon. Some people had radicalized themselves from all segments of the society. This has happened. That is a challenge we had to come out with it. But what I am trying to say is that post 21-4, we all know Muslims suffered the most. You know, everyone was looked upon like as if he was either a terrorist or terrorist sympathizer or a hardliner. That's what they were looked up to. The students couldn't go with their normal shalwars. The Muslim women couldn't properly go with I'm of course against the face veil, but their normal the hijab also was resisted. With all those things, and more than 2,500 people, 2,300 people have been already released after 6 months lagging behind bars for things they never did. All these things were possible because 21-4 happened. That is after 97 intelligence report. So that shows when a proper strong leader is not there, who compromised the national security is not in the helm, everyone will suffer. So that is what I am saying. Relatively, everyone will be safe and minorities will be safe with a good, strong leader who will give prominence to the national security.
I remember speaking with you here at Hyde Park right after the Easter attacks, talking about trying to understand Islam as a religion and also works of extremist groups who broke the unity of the country. But here you stress that the law of the land is above all, and that is something that regardless of what religion or faith you have, communities should understand that. But here, don't you also see that there was a failure by leaders of certain communities to come out and talk about the law of the land, and that also was a problem for the government, and which is why it looked as if the government was not doing anything?
I think there was clearly a lack of leadership from all quarters immediately leading up to that unfortunate incident and post that. You know, just that people started pointing fingers at each other without taking the responsibility and meeting the real challenges. That is so. But having said so, it's government of the day is responsible and in charge of the security. So they can't point fingers at others and get away from that responsibility. So I think, as you correctly pointed out, not that the Muslim community did not at that time, if you remember, in Katankudi there was agitation against this person and 15 police complaints were against them. And now it revealed in the Supreme Court 97 intelligence reports have been submitted. Did
Gotabaya Rajapaksa really have connections with the ringleader of the Easter attacks?
I know, that's a laughable question being posed.
We'd really like to know, because there's so much of reports going around.
Yeah, that is exactly the people who are not capable. They will not take the responsibility, and then they will point fingers at all corners. How could it be possible? Mr. Rajapaksa, for the last 4.5 years, is no one. Just an ordinary citizen, is constantly under watch by all these intelligence agencies. How can he do that? A single person. Moreover...
But do you think these allegations, they say he would have created this mess so that the stir would actually be in advantage of his possible candidacy?
Basically, there are 9 Muslims in the name of the God had gone and blasted themselves. That's what it happened. And there were further blasts which took place in Dematagoda, where one of the suicide bombers' wife, she was pregnant and blasted herself and a minor kid while being pregnant. And there were 6 others, blasted themselves with a huge bomb in East. So somebody is trying to say 17 of them on behalf of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is not even the prime president or president country, in the name of the God, kill themselves. This is absolute rubbish, and this is exactly why this government should go now. You know, you can't do this. You have first, you are responsible. Second, when you have blunted and you have failed, you can't point fingers at others. You must face it and safeguard everyone. This is not going to take us anywhere.
We'll take a short break at Hyde Park and return to speak more on this subject. Do stay with us. Welcome back at Hyde Park tonight. We're talking to President's Counsel Ali Sabry about matters pertaining to Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa. As the legal counsel for Gotabaya Rajapaksa, I think it's very important that we clarify this question with you about his citizenship matter. We saw Minister Harin Fernando's tweet, which led to a lot of debate, discussion, and a press briefing that you also chaired. Now, if Gotabaya Rajapaksa's name was not in the previous quarter report, his spokesman insisted that it will definitely be carried in the third quarter report. I'm just reading out Harin Fernando's tweet. What is your clarification to this? What happened to the quarterly publication of individuals who have chosen to renounce their citizenship? Why is Gotabaya Rajapaksa's name not in it?
That's, I think, the question we should ask from the Federal Register of the United States. That's a matter totally within, not within the purview of us. What the procedure that happens to go there into the Federal Register is like the Gazette. It takes a lot of time. We are not interested in that. That is because what is important is that he should renounce his citizenship, which in the press conference I had the original documents with me with the cancelled passport with embossed seals. So we have the oath, we have the cancelled loss of nationality certificate. On the basis of the loss of national certificate, the cancelled passport. So he is no longer a Sri Lankan, the American citizen. He is only a Sri Lankan citizen. That is done and dusted. And that's why they didn't even raise that as an objection at the nomination. And so that I don't know why they are, because out of desperation, desperate times call for desperate measures. They decide to go on all these things. Federal Register will take its own time to slowly collect this information from different parts. It has to go to the State Department. Through the State Department, it has to go to them. It's a totally an internal thing. We have no influence or anything. We could do it. But we are not at all surprised. And it's a normal thing. For example, from Minister, Mr. Melinda Moragoda, when he renounced the Sri Lankan citizenship, the American citizenship, it took almost 1.5 years for his name from the date of the renunciation to come into the Federal Register. It's not a requirement in terms of the law.
But we were in understanding that some clarification would have come, because by June, by the 30th of June, when the previous register was issued, it was stated that his
nobody stated.
spokesperson,
that's all false.
That this would be included in the next quarter.
How can we say that? Do we have control over Federal Register in the United States of America? We have absolutely no control. We never said so. We said that's an internal matter for them. It may come in 1 year, it may come in 5 years. We are not interested in that.
But with questions as these coming out, President's Counsel, I think it's important that we clarify to the people.
We have clarified.
Because people may wonder whether the person they're voting for or not is actually eligible to be the president of this country, because that's what's happening here.
What is more you have to clarify? This is absolutely clarified. It's just that UMP is desperate out of the latest opinion poll shows that 12 to 14% behind Mr. Gotabaya. SIS report, today Sunday Times says, SIS report, that is, we all know, government report, they say that 6% lead, but independent report source, it is a landslide. It's going to be. These are signs of total desperation, because these were settled long time ago. They first told you will never be able to get the citizenship renounced. America will not allow you because you have cases. And we said it's all nonsense. So we went on the 17th of April and declared it. On the 3rd of May, he had given the certificate. On that basis, I personally accompanied Mr. Rajapaksa, went to the election commission, met all 3 commissioners and showed them the originals of the document, just to clarify, because you were the same kind of concern at that time. That is a presidential candidate, people should have the confidence on that. More than that, what we could do? Nothing. That is why those, if you remember, Mr. Viyangoda and Professor Thayanura went to court saying that he is no longer a Sri Lankan citizen because he had never acquired the Sri Lankan citizenship after he acquired American citizenship. In that, they produced a CID report. In that, they produced this loss of citizenship certificate. This is all aware of that. Now that out of sheer desperation, again they are bringing it. So there is, at the press conference, we had all the original certification, all the documents, and I invited all the media people to come and inspect. Most of them came and inspected it. There is absolutely nothing. I think people are convinced. It's just that the people in the opposing camp are having some kind of self-satisfaction among themselves by coming out with all these things. Let them have this fun for the next 6 days.
Would he renounce his citizenship is also a question for many in that camp, I suppose. Because it's the US citizenship, and you don't see many Sri Lankans renouncing their citizenship.
I know, probably it's a problem, and so many of them are there, and we also know that some of the members of that in the present government probably will have dual citizenship. We are in the process of going through that. But if you look at it from the beginning, where this government went wrong is they never concentrate on merits and try to take what MR's government did for 10 years. Instead, they choose a different path just to block Rajapakshas. They came out with a constitutional amendment to block Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksha by taking a third term taboo, and dual citizenship to prevent Gota and Basil, and age limit was raised from 30 to 35 to prevent Namal Rajapaksa. Then they came out with the FCID to put these people behind bars, illegally establishing a police. Then they established new courts. So nothing is working. So that is because from the beginning they considered any Rajapaksas contesting, they can't win, isn't it? No, that is because people like them. But what can we do if people want them? This is a democracy. So they were hell-bent on themselves without getting anyone else that they can't beat a Rajapaksa. So now that a Rajapaksa has come, and most, I think, out of the Rajapaksas, apart from Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, most popular, most hardworking, somebody with a vision, is the presidential candidate. I know they are now almost conceding defeat, and during that period, this is how they act. We are not surprised.
Let me also speak a little about the 19th Amendment. I'm glad that we have a legal counsel here. There's talk about the next president of Sri Lanka not having the fullest authority or the executive powers that were vested with previous presidents. Are we trying to say here that the next president of Sri Lanka will not be able to exercise powers as much as he would like to?
I think there is some reasonable explanation in saying that post 19th Amendment, the powers which were there to the president earlier is not there to that extent. But I see that as a positive. Why that? Because still the executive power, the source of the executive power and the executive power is vested with the president himself. He will be the head of cabinet, continue to be the head of the cabinet. So it is his government and his policy along with the cabinet. Then he will decide who will be the prime minister. He will continue to appoint secretaries to the ministry. So in other words, only thing what practically are taken away from him is he himself holding ministerial post. I think that's a blessing in disguise. That's a good thing, because a president is like a CEO. He's not the head of human resources or head of finance or head of accounts or head of promotion. Those are ministers. CEO is the one who is in charge of the government. He must get everyone else to work to get the vision accomplished. So that's why under President Jayawardena, he never took any of the powerful ministries.
Are you saying that the 19th Amendment should be retained, that we should continue
I mean, as far as the largest thing, I mean, I don't see any major reasons to go ahead, go out of it. But there are some areas. So I'll just quickly finish it. If you look at Jayawardena, he never retained any of the powerful ministries. Under him, finance minister was Ronnie Dimel, and education was given away. Lalita Mudli, Gautama, Premadasa was all given good ministries, and he just sat, watched them, performance, and got the credit. That is how he. But under Premadasa, President Premadasa, because he had a running battle between him and Lalita Mudli and Gautama. So he didn't want to give those powerful ministries to them. He got Mr. D.B. Wijayatunga, who was almost in retirement as a governor, brought back and appointed as the president. And he took most of the powerful ministry to himself and ran it. So then it became the norm. Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga also did it, and President Rajapaksa also did it. In my calculation, in my assumption, it is a blessing in disguise that you don't hold ministries. You don't need to hold ministry. That's what is expected from a president. President, what is expected is to be in charge of the vision and ensure that it's been implemented by devolving powers to different people rather than retaining power with him. So in that sense, this is a good thing. But there are some areas like independent commissions in certain areas. For example, you saw post 21-4 for the failure to execute or safeguard the people. President wanted to sack the IGP. He couldn't do it. So that's probably is an area where we need to.
I wanted to come to that too. In the case where we have a government as this, where the president is from a different camp and the prime minister from a different camp, we saw disagreements between the president and the prime minister where they do not agree. But we also saw a lot of impediments where decisions pertaining to the national security or continuity of policy regulations could not be exercised as the president may have otherwise done. But how would the next president of the country continue if in such a case?
I know the situation what we had last 4.5 years was quite extraordinary, is abnormal, because somebody from a particular party and the other one, it was a hybrid kind of a government, a marriage which is not going to last anyway. From the beginning we knew that, totally different policies. At that time the priority for them was not the country, not the policies, just to get rid of Rajapakshas. That's the truth. So they all got together without any meeting of minds and as to how the country should work on that. So they immediately just got hold of a so-called coalition with different ideologies and started working together. Some is extreme capitalism, some is almost extreme leftist. The president and the prime minister is a total capitalist. So how can you work? But going forward, that is very unlikely that will happen. For example, if President Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa is elected as the president, probably the prime minister would be Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, His Excellency. So they are from the same camp, same party, same policies, and hopefully these same kind of hiccups we had during the last 4.5 years may not occur.
Right. I think it's time we take a short commercial break. We'll be back after this. Stay with us at Hyde Park. Welcome back. At Hyde Park tonight, we're talking to civil society activist, President's Counsel Alice Sabry, who was a former diplomat and former deputy president of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, joining us here at Hyde Park. Well, we did speak about the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, the impediments the current president faces. And as we look upon electing the 7th executive president of Sri Lanka, I'd like to ask you now, we have some time to go for a general election. Does this mean if SLPP candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa is elected the president, that he will have to work with Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister, that he will not be able to appoint, as you said earlier, that Mahinda Rajapaksa, former president, may be the opposition leader now, may be his Prime Minister, but until the general election he might not be able to do that? No,
that's not correct. But it says that President, in his opinion, will appoint a Prime Minister who commands the majority of the Parliament.
But he doesn't have the majority.
Exactly. That's what, that is at today, right? So let's wait for the 16th and take my word, the numbers will be different on the 17th and 18th. Just take for an instance, when President Sirisena took oath as the president of the country, how many votes Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe had in the Parliament? Just 47. Then what happened? So these are practical realities in this country. So I'm absolutely...
But even the Tamil National Alliance is in
You don't want them. There is enough. This UPFA has 105. There are 3 other MPs already supporting. Vasantha Senanayake is supporting. A member of the Parliament from Puttalam is supporting. One member of TNA, Mr. Vyalendran, is supporting. There are so many people just waiting. But
are you saying that there may be crossovers without any policy stance?
No, first of all, you need to understand this. This is a practical world. People are expecting immediate relief. It has to be run. So the ideal scenario for the opposition is also concede that their policies have failed and agree with the opposition now, together with the government, and with a 2/3 majority go for a dissolution of the Parliament immediately and go for an election so that the people can elect them. So if it is not happening, can we wait till 6 months to go and work with the people who are diametrically opposed to each other? No. So in a practical sense, we need to form a government. So in that, if people from the other government who believe in our policies, who believe in Mr. Rajapaksa's policy, are willing to come back and join, there's nothing wrong in not having them. So, so that is on the larger point of the country. So let's wait and see how it happens, and let's that one at a time. Now we are focusing on the 16th. Let's finish that. Things will change.
As we speak about Parliament and ministerial positions, candidate of the New Democratic Front, Minister Sajith Premadasa, is definite about who his Minister of Law and Order will be, Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca, and they have also come forward with promises, pledges to secure the national interest, sovereignty of the nation and national security too. This is also something that Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has come forward to, standing for the national security, ensure national security. But how would people differentiate this?
Of course, differentiate it from the past conduct. You know, I just asked them, our viewers, to look at 2005. Where was the country at that time? Bombs were going all over. LTT was in control of 1/3 of the country. Economy was sluggish. Everybody is in trouble. You couldn't go to school. You were worried about your kids. And take that, fast forward it to 2015. I mean, we were much better off. LTT was totally defeated. Ruthless organization which everybody thought, including Rome, including CIA, including Solheim, everyone thought you could not have defeated them in a military means. One man believed in that. That was Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa. It was possible. And he ensured that. And since the end of the LTT terrorism in 2009, and not a single incident which happened during that reign. That because there was a proper planning. Priority for that. It was number one priority. What have they done for the last 5 years? No war. Absolutely better conditions. They say that they had the international support. With all those things, we are all vulnerable, aren't we? We are much worse than what we were in 2015. So anybody can say anything. Mr. Rajapaksa has a proven track record, and compare these two terms. And compare 2005 to 15 and 15 to 20. Are we better or worse?
This might not be a question for you, but since you are vying for Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa's candidacy as president, I'd like to ask you whether you have confidence in your presidential candidate that he will be able to work with the international community, because after the war we saw a lot of pressure from the international community coming on Sri Lanka. But the Rajapaksa camp is not seen to have worked well with the international community. That's what the West thinks. Do you think the Gotabaya Rajapaksa presidency will be able to avoid Sri Lanka being isolated in the world map?
Definitely we are not interested in getting isolated. One thing, under no condition we will let down our sovereignty. We will not compromise on that. Subject to that, we are open to work with everyone. I think Mr. Rajapaksa is very, very certain on that. We will, if you go through our policy statement, we would want to go back to our original foreign policy, which is non-aligned. That means we are not pro-Western, we are not pro-China, we are not pro-anyone. We are non-aligned. For us, everyone is a friend. So on a practical world, we understand we need West, we need America, we need EU, we need Middle East, we need India, we need China. So we probably will have a difficult job to balance that, and we will do it. Only condition would be we will not compromise our national sovereignty and the security.
But even with Army Commander Shavendra Silva being appointed, there was a stir and opposition from the Western world, alluding to human rights violations they allege he has committed. But former Defence Secretary, now presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa, was also in the forefront of the war. So don't you think this will actually have negative impact?
What we would request the West and the Tamil community, without totally going back on everything that has happened so far, have a fresh look at it. And one thing what you must understand is 13,784 LTT cadres surrendered to us. We rehabilitated them 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and put them back to the society. If we are interested in war crimes or genocide or anything, we wouldn't have done that. That's not true. So we need to understand that when a war happens, there will be casualties which you can't prevent. You know, I mean, this is inevitable, which is unfortunate but inevitable. 26,500 Sri Lankan soldiers laid their life for this country. Nobody talks about it, and we all know how Muslims are massacred in 2 mosques. Now the church massacres have taken place. We have forgotten 1990 Katankudi massacre, the Eravur massacre, and you name the place everywhere, whether the World Trade Center, whether our central bank, whether the railway station, whether the Fort railway station. We had a torrid time. So we have to move on now. No, everyone is safe here. I mean, unfortunately, Tamil National Alliance and everyone there are not interested in serving their people. 85% of the budget, which was allocated to the provincial council, Northern Provincial Council, had come back. Why is that? They don't want to work for the people. They just want to steer communal disharmony and continue to do politics. This is good time that they must come out and decide on this and work for their people. So what we are interested, I think Mr. Rajapaksa is interested, he is accelerated development and a lot of money onto education and develop all the regions so people will connect it together, become closer to each other, improve their job skills and education skills. So through development, I think most of our differences probably will go out of the window, just like it happened in Malaysia and Singapore. Now just for an instance, take Singapore. Now there is no country in the world without the support and confidence of the majority of that country had been able to develop. So minorities also should understand this. You can have all this minority protection. There is nothing called minority protection. Protection for all. That's what we believe in.
Speak so much about minority protection, minority rights. There is also a tendency where the majority feels threatened that their rights are not answered, are not looked at. You, coming from a Muslim minority community, from a minority community in Sri Lanka as a Muslim, how do you look at this? Because we understand that the Muslim community's rights also should be addressed. Tamil community rights and concerns should be addressed. So just as much as the majority Sinhala Buddhist. But how do we really look at uniting all these communities? And we can't forget the Catholics, the Christians who suffered at the hands of extremists on the 21st of April. So how do we unite them under one flag, one Sri Lanka?
Exactly, precisely is my position. So you can look at different solutions to different ethnicities. That's where countries will not progress. You have to look all of them as Sri Lankans and kind of come out with a solution so you uplift every one of them. That's how good countries have developed. Look at, for an example, in Singapore. Singapore, the majority is Chinese. You know, they are about 60-70% are Chinese, and then about 20% probably Malays, about 10% Indian origins. So there is the leader they chose was Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. So where all the minorities supported them, and he also looked after everybody equally as Singaporean, and results are there for everyone to see. The vice versa happened in Malaysia. Majority was Malays, minority was Chinese and the Indians. They all supported Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, and you can see the results. So I think this is time that our minority leaders also, without going after these race-based politics, look at on policy-based politics and support someone who comes out with a executable vision, who is capable of delivering that vision, who has a track record, who had done that in the past. So rather than continuously talk about now in Indonesia, sorry, in Singapore or in Malaysia, they were not asking for separate governance, separate power, devolution and all those things. They got together and developed the nation. Everyone is happy there. So that is exactly, so we need to look at the legitimate questions which are sometimes specific for a particular race or religion. But general program it should be for entire country.
But what policies in this manifesto are you supporting that will appeal to the Muslim community, to the Tamil community? We have a large diaspora outside the country too, and also the majority Sinhala Buddhists and the Catholics and other communities in the country too, because you can't have policies like you said that would feel one community isolated and the other threatened.
Exactly. Now, if you look at it, Indeewari, what do you expect from a government? You expect security, you expect stability, you expect prosperity, you expect dignity and communal harmony. So what GR is saying is the same thing. I will ensure national security. In order to ensure national security, I have to build on national harmony. I will accelerate the development. In order to accelerate the development, I will invest on infrastructure and education. And this is kind of all-encompassing, a total package. This is not targeting a particular segment or particular ethnicity group. This is for Sri Lankans. And that's the way forward. That's why I'm in this stage. That's what I am saying. That is the way forward. We can have separate solutions to Muslims, Tamils, Sinhalese, and displease each other.
Do your people agree with you on this?
I think there is a look. Muslims have been traditionally is pro-UMP. You can't deny that. But since we have come in, I could say there is a substantial portion of the Muslim community are now thinking this whether nationalistic policy or ethnic-based politics. It's an important choice. So this race-based policy, ethnic-based parties have not done any good for us for the last 30-40 years. It has divided the people. It has antagonized each other. So it is time that we move away from it and come for a nationalistic policy base.
Right. Thank you very much for your time here at our studios at Hyde Park, and all the very best. I'm sure this will be a very busy time in the next couple of days for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We had with us President's Counsel Alice Sabry, a civil society activist and somebody who has been in the forefront of reconciliation efforts post-Easter attacks here in Sri Lanka. Thank you for joining us at Hyde Park. Good night.